This is a very special day for me to be able to share this with everyone here, the launching of the book. Can somebody hand me a book? Thank you. I did this in the village too. Anyway, I want to start by thanking a few friends who put a lot of time and energy into helping to make it happen. And I want to thank Narayan and Dharmadevi first and foremost, because they're the publishers at Ananda Village, and they agreed to publish this book, and they're a dream to work with. And let's see, Tej, who did the artwork, the design, and Madhavi, who she had a different name when I knew her before, and I'm not used to it yet, who did all the formatting of the book. Locally, Nancy Callan and Becca for helping to proof and edit the book, which was just a joy. And then in California, Rambhakta and Lakshman also helped proof and edit the book. I needed a lot of proofing and editing in this book. As I write in the book, writing is not my first way of communicating with people, so I needed some help. But it was an inspiration to do it, and I want to thank also my dear husband, Riemann, for letting me take the time to write the book and covering for me so that I could do it, and for the staff at the temple similarly, because I needed different blocks of time in order to get it done in between things. So thank you to all of you. Swamiji, who Narayan spoke about so beautifully just now, would not want us to talk about how great he was. The only thing he asked is to be remembered as a disciple, a direct disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda, his guru. His life was dedicated, his inner life was permanently connected with the guru. At the end of his life, he said, I don't know where Kriyananda ends and Yogananda begins. And that's what I felt when I first met him. The very first time I met him was in 1970. I had just read Autobiography of a Yogi. I was guided to go to Ananda, which was very rustic in those days. And the first time I met him, I felt from him the same energy, now I would call it vibration, that I felt from Autobiography of a Yogi, that I felt from that book. And that's what drew me. It was peace, it was calmness, and it was Yogananda. It was the vibration of who I consider my guru, Paramahansa Yogananda. And so through the years, I don't have a lot of time here, so I'm just going to share one example that's not in the book. Yogananda used to say, too many rules kill the spirit. And Swami Kriyananda had that be a basic precept at Ananda when he first started Ananda in California. Too many rules kill the spirit. And so the only rules laid down were no drugs and no alcohol. Everything else, well, there was one other thing at Ananda Village, which was rural, which was no dogs, because they would chase the deer and they would bark. In a meditation community, that didn't work so well. But aside from that, no drugs, no alcohol. That's all we have here. We have dogs in the community here. And so, but what does that mean? Because in having various leadership roles at Ananda Village, when Riemann and I were living there, there's a real, magnetism that pulls us human beings towards creating rules because it's easier. You get some structure and everybody knows when you're inside the structure, when you're outside the structure. And so that's our human nature. And there were so many times when we would be about to make a rule, and Swami would, he didn't make a big thing. He would just call some of us over and he would talk it through and he would offer some suggestions, and we realized we didn't need to make a rule because the spiritual life is about each of us individually being with God, being one in God. And ultimately it means releasing all our karma, releasing the ego, and ascending into that union with God. Yoga means union. And so, of course you can't make a rule because everybody has different karma. And what's right for some people is not right for another person. And as long as we're there with good intention, where we have the common thread of wanting to know God, then, there's not going to be anything so bad that we have to make a rule about. We simply work it out individually. So when Riemann and I were first asked to come here to Seattle by Swamiji, I remember I was in the kitchen at the community here in Linwood, and there was a woman there at the time, she didn't live there very long, who was crazy about composting. And so in the kitchen, she had all these rules. She'd created all these rules about composting. And somebody had cooked dinner that night who had, accidentally thrown something in the wrong bin or something. And she went ballistic and she said to me, "Are you going to ask this person to leave? To move out. They don't belong in this community." And I said, "No." I had learned enough by then to know that the answer to that was no. The heart is right. The spirit is right. So we make mistakes. So we do things. And what's a mistake to one person is not a mistake to another. So it's just one example. And in the book, I have hundreds of little nuggets, little hints. And I call it hints of laughter, hints of joy, because that was in this song. That was a line in this song. But life, the spiritual life, is hints of laughter and hints of joy. We see the hints of joy. Joy is one of the aspects of God, Yogananda explains. And so we're blessed to have those hints. And I, as a token of my gratitude to this life of many decades, living with Swami Kriyananda, learning from him, serving with him, I felt that I needed to write it down or it would evaporate. It would disappear. So thank you all for your patience. And I also wrote it for the future, for after this first generation is gone, and in the future, people can refer to some of these books and get a feeling because the spiritual life is intuitive. So you get a feeling of the vibration of it. So I've asked my friends to each select a snippet and read them.
So honored to read one of that beautiful quotes. Do it now. Swami learned this precept early in his years with Yogananda. Yogananda urged all those in training with him to complete tasks quickly and efficiently. This forced an attitude essential in a spiritual life, the attitude of high energy.
Swami always answered his phone himself. No matter what he was doing or with whom he was meeting, when his phone rang, he would answer it. He was always present for those who needed his help. I came to understand that this was true service and that it was how God works. God is always there for us.
Swami learned from Yogananda to do every task quickly and efficiently with concentration. In managing his projects, he assigned himself a seemingly endless stream of self-imposed deadlines. By setting this example, he showed us how we, too, by focusing on our energy, could complete any task we set ourselves. Meditation and God remembrance also require focused attention. Thus, our daily activities give us many opportunities to deepen our meditation by learning to concentrate. We learned from Swami also that concentration comes easily and naturally when our heart's feelings are engaged. It's much easier to keep our attention on what we are doing when we are enthusiastic and driven by a strong desire to accomplish the task at hand.
In the late 1980s, a dear friend at the original community contracted AIDS. At the time, medications for the deadly disease were in the early research stages, which meant that there wasn't much hope for her survival. She worked in my department, and when she confided her situation, I arranged for her to see Swami. He urged her to keep her heart and mind focused one-pointedly on Divine Mother in every moment that she possibly could. My friend embraced his advice and spent hours each day chanting. She didn't feel well, so meditation was difficult, but her heart was fully engaged in her chanting. I realized that his advice addressed three things. 1, the best healing is not to focus on healing, but to focus on God alone. 2, with her heart and mind on God, she wasn't thinking about her illness, which would only have given the illness more energy. And 3, with her heart and mind on God, she was focused on her highest self. She fought the good fight for a number of years. Then finally, the disease took her body, but not her spirit. Her spirit soared.
When Swami put me in charge of his special projects, we often worked late into the night. Now and then, he would say, "Thank you for helping." Sometimes he was overseas and not present to be working on the project. But he would call to say, Thank you for helping. In time, I came to understand his meaning. An ideal attitude we can have is one of helping God. In everything we do, we are serving as his instruments. Thus, in thanking me, Swami was drawing my awareness to the reality that I was an instrument for God, and for that, I am eternally grateful.
Once, when I was visiting Swami in India, he took a few of us to dinner at the Trident Hotel. It was glorious. After dinner, we walked past the hotel's very upscale gift shop. When Swami went in, I held my breath. It was very expensive. I was mentally holding on tightly to my wallet. Then Swami said, "You should purchase something, Padma." Oh my, I couldn't get out of it now. I looked very carefully at the items. Everything was beautiful. Well, finally, my eyes landed on a tiny silver picture frame. It was lovely. The oval frame was fashioned in a classical Indian pattern, and it was the least expensive item I could find. Swami was pleased with my selection. I could tell by the twinkle in his eye that he had been teasing me. He was still trying to help me to release my thrifty roots and to understand that true renunciation resides within. As soon as we arrived back home, I placed a small portrait of him in the frame. To this day, it adorns my meditation space, along with the precious memory of the lesson that accompanied it.
Swami said, "The reason I write is to inspire people to act." Yogananda came to offer people techniques and a way of life that could give them their own direct experience of God. Swami's effort was always to further Yogananda's purpose. He didn't write only to inspire people, but to inspire them to take the action in their spiritual lives.
Swami didn't mentor us. Rather, he threw us in beyond our depth, but then unfailingly supported and guided us with counsel as needed and through our own intuition as we swam to shore.
When I worked in publishing in the original community, my office was near Swami's residence. Almost daily, he would invite me over at 5 p.m. for tea, when he would ask for updates on the sales and progress of his books. I attended many other meetings at his home as well. Whenever I walked to Swami's, and as I approached his building, it was as if I were entering an astral cloud. I could suddenly no longer think linearly. I could only experience things intuitively. I would often muse about the experience. Although it took me out of my comfort zone, I looked forward to it with delighted anticipation. It was a completely different way of relating that I hadn't experienced before, nor have I had the same experience since.
A person with a difficult personality applied for community membership. The membership committee members were reluctant to accept her, knowing that she would be a source of trouble. When Swami learned of the proposed decision, he advised that if we didn't accept her, we would have to go out and find someone just like her. In a spiritual community, the members aspire to grow spiritually, which means we seek to overcome our limitations. It is precisely the people who test us who are best able to help us become spiritually mature.
Most of us imagine that we are directing our own lives. I find it interesting to see the level of detail that Yogananda devoted to guiding Swami's life. Because his advice came from the consciousness of a fully self-realized master, it shows us that God wants to guide all of our thoughts and actions, even the most fleeting and seemingly insignificant. The ego may feel hemmed in, but the soul feels free in living at the center of God's will.
Some people believe they're being realistic in seeing both problems and solutions in each situation. Swami was aware of the problems, but rarely voiced them. His focus was instead entirely on solutions. I recall one occasion when someone in our department was holding himself up as an expert and wanted a role in a project. When he asked Swami to give him the role, I felt I should alert Swami to my misgivings. But before I could say a word, he says, "I know." I continue to speak, and after a few more words, he says, "I know." He was trying to spare me the reciting of the problems, but he was also telling me that he was fully aware of the issues, but that he had deliberately chosen to direct his energy and attention to helping this person instead. The lesson was clear. As Swami often reminded us, the rational mind is problem-oriented, but the divine intuition, the superconscious mind, is solution-oriented. Thus, his advice when approaching any project or problem, be solution-oriented.
In Paramahansa Yogananda's autobiography, he tells how Swami Sri Yukteswar would celebrate the solstices and equinoxes. He would lead the chanting devotees through the streets and invite people to the ashram afterwards for a tasty meal. Large crowds would enjoy the food prepared by the ashram residents, and then Sri Yukteswar would speak to them about the universality of the eternal religion, Sanatana Dharma. Inspired by this example, we decided to offer a similar meal and talk at the Seattle community on the evening of the solstice. When we asked Swami for his thoughts, he encouraged us. Naturally, we couldn't lead a kirtan parade through the streets, but everything else was possible. We prepared a lovely meal and served it for free, followed by a fire ceremony and a talk on the universal principles that form the basis of all true religions, Sanatana Dharma, the eternal truth. It looked at first as if only a few people would attend. To our amazement, people then began pouring in. More than 90 people packed into a room that we had set up for 40. The cooks quickly prepared extra food, and a beautiful evening was enjoyed by all. Later that night, Swami called to ask how it had gone. With wonder in our voices, we told him about the gathering of the large and happy crowd of souls, most of whom were newcomers. Swami replied, "Of course many attended." To him, it was completely natural in light of the heightened energy of the solstice. Our wish to emulate Sri Yukteswar's example and our willingness to try something entirely new in his name helped us learn that the natural cycles of the stars can, in fact, influence our lives.
In the early days of our residential community in Seattle, Swami would call several times a week to support us and answer our questions. At one point, we faced extremely difficult financial hurdles. I didn't want to burden Swami, knowing that thousands were always heaping their troubles on him. But when a friend told him our community was on the brink of economic disaster, he replied that it could not be the case, or we would have told him about it. So when I saw him, I laid everything on the table. He said, essentially, just keep doing what you are doing, and all will be well. I understood this to be the way that we should behave with God. We should not cherry pick some limited subset of matters to share with him in prayer, but rather lay every aspect of our lives at the feet of the divine. In God, all things are neutral. It is only our judgment that makes them seem good or bad. Swami often said, if the spirit is right, everything will turn out as it should. Look within, he was saying, and if you feel God's presence, don't be concerned about what appears to be happening on the outside. His unworried response to our community's seemingly dire finances reminded me that when we worry, we can never be in tune with divine energy, which is always solutions-oriented. Worry is a negative emotion laden with negative energies. They disturb our thoughts, feelings, and actions, making us restless and disturbed. Be in tune. Paramahansa Yogananda used to say, that is what is most important.
We want to send blessings for the book, for the launch of it, and offer our gratitude to Padma. So if you would, let's stand and send ohms, like petals of the lotus, rejoicing.
How did you do this? It wasn't us.
Magic. Let's send 3 ohms to Padma, to the book, and our gratitude to Swami and Master.
Thank you.